Hi, I'm Misty Miller, and I want to welcome you to this live streaming broadcast of the Kentucky Classic Combined Driving event brought to you by Post Time Studios. This is day one, dressage.
Joining me for some commentary on our webcast. And the first ride goes to a local competitor here from Paris, Kentucky, Jennifer Keeler, with Amazing Grace, a 7-year-old 14-hand Hackney Dutch Cross mare. That's to indicate to the judges that she does just have one hand on the reins, correct?
That is correct. And the more you can indicate as a driver that it's a decisive movement, the better. And a small extension there into a working trot before the lateral movement, the diagonal yield. Should be slight flexion to the right. And then her 40-meter half circle in the medium trot, lengthening the frame and steps with impulsion. Transition to extension. And looking for the contact and lengthening. And coming into her next yield. This time slight flexion to the left. At R, transition to the medium trot again in the 40-meter half circle. At S, down into the walk, a working walk. At E, to a free walk. Looking for freedom, energy, stretch, and regularity. P will be her transition to the collected trot. And preparation for the right lead canter. And this is a working canter.
And this is the only test in combined driving where the canter is part of the test, isn't it, at this
correct.
level?
It's just the singles that have the canter work and the lateral work. At L, she transitions back to the collected trot, looking for accuracy, bend, the contact, and the quality of the trot work. And she's coming up to her 8-second halt. Square. And the judges will be watching for the transition in and out of the halt. Back into the collected trot. Again, preparation for the canter. This time on the left lead. They will be looking for that rhythm and being able to continue in the canter. And then into an extended canter, where they want to see lengthening of frame and stride, and covering more ground.
So Martha, as we saw there, that little slip and the break down to a, coming down to a trot and back to the canter, will that be penalized severely? Will that affect her marks in a big way?
It will hurt her both in the movement, and it may also hurt her in the collective marks. Okay, she's preparing for her rein back. You want to be clearly straight, and the quality of the 6 steps back will be important. B to M, she has her extended trot, M back to the working trot. So just a lot of different transitions, looking for the balance and the bending and the contact.
As you would see in ridden dressage here, the mirror image of the movements you saw in the other direction with the other hand on the reins, or is it always the left hand on the reins?
Yeah, I think it just depends. It's one-handed. That's what it says.
It's one-handed, and it's up to the driver wherever they're the most comfortable.
Yeah, driving is something where they have said that the drivers can drive using any style, and you will see some different styles out there. The singles are pretty consistent. It's almost like riding. You know, you have that contact.
The same contact, both hands, the same weight in both reins.
You can see she has her reins bridged here. It's something drivers do, riders don't always do. Their halt and salute.
And that's the final salute. That completes the test from Jennifer Keeler here from Paris, Kentucky. A strong proponent of the Developing Driver Initiative started by the United States Equestrian Federation. She's driving Amazing Grace, a 7-year-old 14-hand Hackney Dutch cross mare put to a Glinkowski Spider Phaeton. The Spider Phaeton, a very formal presentation vehicle. The name Spider is given to vehicles that are very light in the undercarriage, very airy looking, very formal. And a beautiful picture presented here by Jennifer Keeler with Amazing Grace. Grace is the 2016 American Driving Society North American Intermediate Champion. This is her first competition at the FEI 2-star level. So Martha, that looked to me like a very smooth drive. She kept the horse in a nice rhythm, or the pony in a nice rhythm throughout the whole test.
Yeah, she had some very nice moments. Her one canter was probably the place she would want to have changed if she could have. But I think generally it was a very nice test.
And of course, the competition never possible without the support of our tremendous sponsors here in the Tiffany sponsor group. Thank you to Hillcroft Farm, James and Misty Miller, and our veterinarians for the competition, Rood and Riddle Equine Hospital. And the premier sponsors in the competition here this weekend, Mary Phelps of Markel Insurance, Dave and Boots Wright of Ocala, Florida, We Both Farm, Mark and Teresa Candianis, also of the Ocala area, Troutwalk Farm, and Susan Giordano. Thank you very much for your support and being part of the Kentucky Classic. Moving on next to a pair of ponies, the only one competitor here this weekend at the 2-star level with a single pony turnout. And we'll see number 19 next down the center line. So Martha, anything different that we look forward to here with a pony as opposed to a single turnout? Anything different in the judging, in the test itself?
Basically, you are looking for the same qualities in the paces, the transitions. It's a little different for the ponies. They have a pole going right down the center, so it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to get that suppleness. But with experience and training and correct harnessing,
and the drivers refer to driving a pair as a unit, right? You're not driving two ponies. You want a picture presented of that pair working as one entity in front of you.
That's absolutely correct.
Number 19, the next in the order, is Katie Whaley from Paris, Kentucky, another local competitor. Katie owns Tommy and Tanner. Barba Sims is the owner of Flyer, the third pony she has with her. The drivers do have the option to change the ponies for the different phases of competition.
And as with the single, they'll be looking for straightness, the transitions, her accuracy and immobility. And transitioning up into the collected trot. And at M, transitioning to the extended trot. At R, At K, she's down into the collected trot again. F to B, 15-meter deviation with reins in one hand. At B, up into the working trot with her 10-meter deviation, still with one hand. She'll be preparing here for her extended trot at H. And D, transitioning down into the collected trot with balance and bending. Her half-meter circle, her 20-meter half circle to the left. Meter circle to the right, reins in one hand. And you should see a moment of straightness over X. Half circle to the left. And back into the working trot. Okay, at L, she's going to come up, halt for 8 seconds. And then move up into the free walk.
So Martha, obviously a little bit different test here as we're seeing the halt down the center line as opposed to a cross and no canter work. So does that make it easier, or is it equally difficult at the two-star level with the pair?
Yeah, I think it's just a different test for the pairs. Cantering is not done with the pairs and harness for the dressage test. But here you're looking for the same thing, the relaxation with the rhythm and the stretching. Which is
Katie is an experienced driver. She's represented the U.S. in World Championships, hasn't she, in pairs and multiples?
Absolutely. And I believe she just got back from competing over there. Back into her collected work. And she just finished her 50-meter circle going into the extended work at H. Meter loops here. The working trot. The left is the near. Mm-hmm. Rein back is 3 meters. coming up into a working trot. Katie has a very relaxed, elegant position on the box. Looks easy, but isn't always. Again, this is another free walk.
And that picture you talk about, that look, is important as well, isn't it? Unlike ridden dressage, it is one of the components here, and that there is a mark out of 10 that is given for
Driver.
For the driver, yes.
Indeed. And what the judges look for is use of the aids, the handling of the reins, the whip, and the position. And also how accurate is the driver. These ponies have good energy in their walk. As she comes down the center line for her salute. Collected, extended, halt, and salute.
And that was the final salute from Katie Whaley, a local competitor from here, Paris, Kentucky. She's the owner of one of the two in this turnout, Tommy. Barb Sims owns a Flyer, a Welsh Cross, and a Welsh Cob, put to a Glinkowski presentation vehicle. A very formal turnout, a very elegant look in the arena. Placed ninth at the 2017 Pony World Championships in Germany. Current USEF national champion. Won that championship in 2016 as well. This pony has not lost a competition in 2 years in combined or pleasure driving. And Martha, that was a beautiful picture. And you mentioned some of the collective marks. That's what the judges will be doing now. They'll be discussing or placing individually their marks as the collectives at the end of the test.
And presentation is also a collective mark. So her turnout, the cleanliness, the fit, and the general impression will also be a mark.
And now we saw there in the background that she's moving off to see the stewards, and they're using a set of cones there. They're measuring the vehicle, aren't they, at this point?
That is correct.
And you'll see the same vehicle being used for cones in combined driving. And once again, a very special thanks to our sponsors. Among the gold sponsors this weekend, Max and Patty Montoya, Michael and Joyce Cowdill, Milton and Jennifer Hamilton, Kate Whaley, Driving Essentials, Trout Walk Farm, and thank you also to Susan Guinan. Gold sponsors for the Kentucky Classic CDE and National Singles Combined Driving Championship. Our silver sponsors include Richard J. and Paula J. Simmons, John and Shelley Hobel, Moonlight Farm, Daphne White, Greg Kellogg, and Marcy Quist, Jim Fairclough, Southern Adventure, Inc., and Mr. and Mrs. Edward Bonney. A number of pairs competing here this weekend in the pony category. I believe we have 3 pair pony turnouts to compete at the 2-star level.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Matheson is next in the order. Jennifer Matheson driving under number 40 here from Aiken, South Carolina. Sponsored by Katrina Becker, Katydid Farm, and Choice of Champions. The pony's owned by Katrina Becker.
Jennifer's waiting for the bell. And preparing for her entry into the arena.
And Jennifer joining us today with Bax, a 15-year-old German riding pony gelding for dressage, paired with Rocco 454, an 11-year-old German riding pony gelding. And they are put to a presentation phaeton, a phaeton built by the Kuhnle Company in Germany.
She's currently in her second movement at the collected trot. And she'll transition at M to the extended. And here she transitions back to her collected trot in the 15-meter deviation. With her reins in one hand. Again, the bending and the accuracy is important for this movement. And here you'll notice Jennifer is using her whip rather than holding it straight out, which is perfectly acceptable.
So she's still driving with one hand, but using the whip as an aid.
Because she needed to use it, and she did.
So to the uninitiated, the whip is really what's used as your leg, isn't it? As if you were riding. It's what you use to bend your ponies, to encourage them to move forward, but we never seen as anything an instrument to hit them.
No, it is your aid, as is your voice.
So you are allowed to talk during the dressage test?
You are indeed. Not to your groom, but to your horses.
So we'll stick with that for a second. Now that we talked about the turnout and the importance of the overall picture being presented here in the for each competitor turnouts, there are mandatory elements to this, aren't there? You have to wear gloves. You have to carry a whip.
Yes, and you have to have an apron and a hat. Yeah, the regularity is important here, and Jennifer's working to regain that. And she's just finishing her 9th movement, coming up into the 8-second halt. Okay, free walk, LXM. And you can see Jennifer stretching and allowing from her shoulder through her elbows, hands, that extra give so they can reach and lengthen. Picking up her collected trot. For her 15-meter left-handed circle. And the judges will be looking for that transition, the impulsion, and the accuracy here. preparing for her extended trot. Back into the collected at P. Yeah, she had better regularity there for her extended trot.
And that's experience showing too. She put that previous movement behind her, went on. She's a very experienced driver.
Exactly.
Been to many national and international competitions under the U.S. flag. In fact, I think she's the only competitor here that's been on two nations teams. Jennifer was 2 times member of the U.S. equestrian team at international competitions and 1 time a member of the Canadian equestrian team.
Uh-huh. I didn't know that. Her rein back. And the horses came forward willingly and well for her there in the upward transition. And 20-meter half circle, collected up into her extended, and then back into the working again. At M, she'll transition to her free walk. A little bit of resistance there. So different in harness, trying to establish that walk if they don't want to do it for you right away. You don't have your legs, you don't have your seat.
It's tough, and they've got 2 to deal with as well.
Exactly. But she handled it well.
And it looks like it might be that near pony being a little bit naughty today.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of collected, then up the center line, extended DXG, and G halt salute.
And a tough movement too to go from a collected trot to extended to a halt.
A lot of transitions.
And that's the final salute from Jennifer Matheson here from Aiken, South Carolina, driving for Katrina Becker, Katie Didfarm, and Choice of Champions, her sponsors, with the German sport ponies Bax 3 and Rocco 454, 15 and 11-year-old geldings. Had a very successful season this year with a win at Southern Pines in the combined driving event, finishing second both at Live Oak International in Ocala and at the Palm Tree competition in Dade City. 2016 and 2017 reserve champion pair pony driver. She held the title of champion 3 times, 3 times USEF Horse of the Year pair pony champion, and as we mentioned on the webcast, a member of the U.S. equestrian team on 2 different occasions, FEI Team Bronze Medal in 2011 at the World Pony Driving Championships. And Jennifer, originally from Canada, represented Canada in international competition on the Canadian equestrian team on 1 occasion. We do have the score for the first entry you saw this evening, the non-official result for Jennifer Keeler and the single pony. The judges' marks, and they're expressed in good marks, or the total good marks out of the possible perfect drive. From Judge Paulson at C, 203.5, Capstick at R, 179, Judge Nichols at P, 190.5, Judge Kunat at V, 189.5, and from Judge Scar at S, 200.5. And that is a penalty score for Jennifer Keeler of 57.28. At the arena now, the next in the pairs competition, this is Mary Phelps. Mary Phelps, now from Virginia, was a Kentucky resident, driving a pair of geldings, Markel's Al Capone and Markel's Bugsy Maloney. Mary owns and drives these ponies, all classic American Shetlands. This vehicle is a Bennington, one of the manufacturers of vehicles, a modern vehicle. And Martha, in the old days, we saw vehicles, antiques and others in the arena. Now they're all modern manufacturers, delayed steering.
I think it's made a tremendous difference in the quality of the dressage tests. Also, the surface of the arena. You know, these carriages roll, and it's light, and the horses can perform much better than they used to.
And in dressage, I mean, I didn't mention, but these vehicles do have disc brakes on all four wheels. Do you use the brakes in the dressage test? Do you add more weight to the ponies to make them show better? Is there anything that they...
Ideally, the carriage should roll free and the horses able to do their job, because what you want to show is the training that they've had.
Right. So more so in the cones arena, where you might get yourself into difficulty on a turn, you might use those brakes to...
You may,
to
but
try
still,
to...
the less that you hold the carriage back, the more forward and free you are, the better your speed will be in the cones.
Makes sense, yeah. And the more rhythm you're going to have from your ponies.
Exactly. And these are small ponies, and I think for a pair of small ponies to have the length of stride that they have is
required to show that and not just be
a good job.
Quick
Yeah.
step. Yeah, both these ponies stand just over 11 hands. And obviously this carriage made for smaller ponies. The picture is in proportion.
That's really important to have the proportion there. And she's making a real difference in her trot work between the extended and collected.
Okay, well, as soon as you announce them, I'll move on there to these guys. So if you want to first. You know.
Okay, Mary's in her sixth movement, doing her working trot. Then she'll do her upward transition at H into the extended. And back into the collected at E.
A nice drive for Barry. She's progressed quickly, hasn't she, in the last few years when she started driving these Shetland ponies?
Yes, she has. She really has. Her one-handed 20-meter circle. A little bit of resistance on her off pony. And up into her working trot here at E. This is a big arena for small ponies. She did well there. They anticipated, and she held them.
Yeah, you mentioned a big arena. It's also not what you usually see at a horse show for combined driving, to have an arena this size with flags and spectators and lights and lots of distractions for the ponies.
It is, but it's a very, very good experience for our horses and ponies and drivers to be able to drive an arena such as this. Because if they do go on and up to the next level and compete in Europe, that may be what they're seeing.
Yep. And a terrific advantage too to have the jury that we have here today. We've brought all these top level judges in from Europe so that the competitors get the experience of knowing what an international jury is going to look for.
Absolutely. Nikki and Pia just came off the European Championships in Gothenburg. And we have Barry Capstick, who's an experienced driver and is now coming up into the international judging. Jennifer from Australia. You know, it's wonderful for her and also for our drivers to have her here. And Yuri has done a tremendous amount in Eastern Europe and Europe as well. He's a very experienced judge.
And talking today about really wanting to come here, it took him 36 hours.
It did. Okay, Mary's taking her 20-meter loop. Left and then right. Where she'll halt in preparation for her rein back. The back was obedient, but you would like to see particularly the off pony a little softer with the contact.
Are you allowed to lock the fifth wheel so that the vehicle travels in a straight line when you rein back?
The directives say a rein back, they're looking for the footfall, and what you do with the carriage as a driver is what you do with the carriage.
So the carriage isn't being judged at that point, it's just the ponies and their action.
You're looking for a straight back with the ponies and the carriage. And if the ponies are straight, the carriage should follow also to be straight. But we have all sorts of equipment now on carriages.
We'll say no more.
Yeah, and this was much softer. The ponies were coming back to her in their contact. And these little ponies have really good energy. And in her final movement, up into the collected trot, down the center line, extended, halt and salute.
And that is the final salute from Mary Phelps to the jury, completing her test with Markel's Al Capone and Markel's Bugsy Maloney, American Shetlands. They are put to a Bennington presentation vehicle. This is Mary's third advanced competition. She was first in the Kentucky Advanced Division 2017 at Live Oak. She finished in third place. Also third place in Little Everglades. Mary has sponsored the Kentucky Classic for 4 years, representing Markel Insurance, also the owner of HorseDaily.com. She will have been producing the HorseDaily.com for 20 years this year. Fourth year of competition with the ponies. This is her first year competing at the FEI 2-star level. So we've seen the pairs of ponies now, 3 competing here this weekend, and those scores will come up to Bruce Ettinger, who's doing our scoring for us. We'll move on to the next category. Now this turnout is a pair of horses, just a single pair of horses competing here this weekend. The driver, or whip as he's referred to, is James Miller, here in the FEI 2-star pair horse class. This entry owned by James and Misty Miller. And for dressage, he is driving Augustus Armoy and Sam, Dutch warm bloods, KWPN registered Dutch warm bloods, and they're put to a Kuhnle Spider Phaeton. So Martha, we move up to horses now, and we've seen the ponies. Obviously conformation allows them to show extensions a little bit more positively than the shorter leg ponies and things, but we're still looking for the same basic movements and the same basic judging of the class.
You're looking for the same qualities: the straightness, the transition, the accuracy, bending, and that is one of the challenges in driving as a judge. Is you have all different packages. You have the small to the large. You have all the breeds, but I think it's what also makes the sport interesting.
And the singles to the multiples too, yeah.
Exactly.
Lots of different degrees of ability from the driver, or whip as he's known. And in the arena now with his final words to James, that is the world champion Boyd XL, his coach, having the final talk with him before he heads down the center line. And the sponsors you saw on the board are on your screens on the webcast. I want to thank them again very much for their support. We cannot compete in this sport without the support of sponsors.
So now the final warm-up before coming into the arena. It's very important, that final warm-up. And your entry. And in this arena, there is a little bit of a challenge because you don't have a lot of space at your entry.
No, and for those of you watching on the webcast, if you're not familiar with the sport, this arena measures 40 feet across. The short end is 40 meters, and the length is 100 meters. So not too many arenas that can accommodate that and give you a nice approach with pairs and four in hands.
The horses waited for him at the halt and salute in the upper transition. And at M, upward transition into a longer stride. and the extended trot. These horses have very good regularity in their trot work. Back into the collected and the deviation. And up into the working trot. Clearly one hand shown here. And preparing here for the extended trot. .20-meter half circle at the collected. One hand here at X for a full 20-meter circle. .20-meter half circle to the working trot at E. These horses are very regular in their up and down transitions in their trot work. Coming to his 8-second halt. And into the free walk.
And Martha, would you say this is more of a traditional look with the collars as opposed to the breast straps, or is that just a personal choice of turnout for the more formal look?
Yes, with the Spider Phaeton, he has his gray top hat and the full collars. Yeah, it's a very nice picture. And he has a very nice upright position in
Yes,
the
yeah.
box.
And you mentioned the gray top hat. Of course, that indicates that he is the owner of the horses that he's driving, whereas staff driving for you would wear a black top hat.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you see pull chains instead of straps, and an owner could only use pull chains. But he has the straps here. Another one-handed circle, half circle rather, and into the extended trot. Yeah, this pair works well as a pair. You can really see that.
And that's just hours, isn't it? Hours and hours of driving and training and working with them together at a either a country walk or practicing for a specific movement.
It is, but if the training is there and the horses are correct in their paces, it is easier to get that together. But yes, it is better if they have worked together.
And like any other equestrian sport, it's the groom, it's the driver, it's the owner, it's the coach. It's a team effort.
It really is in driving. He has another transition down. And it takes a lot of preparation as you turn that corner to have them come down into the walk. And it's a free walk.
Now, as he came into that free walk, he did drop a rein and picked it back up. Is that penalized, or is that just quick thinking?
Well, it was quick thinking on his part. It will affect the quality of the movement, as it was a little late for the horses to come into their walk.
And, of course, the collectives at the end for the use of the aids.
Okay, and final movement down the center line.
Completing the test, James Miller from Paris, Kentucky, with Sam and Augustos Armoy, KWPN registered Dutch warm bloods, but a beautiful Kuhnle vehicle, manufactured in Germany, the wicker back. A beautiful turnout. Nice to see this in the arena. Competed his first 1-star and 2-star, completing his ratings in the FEI competition this year in Florida. James Miller, an avid polo player, a coachman, saddlebred rider, and a driver in combined driving competitions. And we have some results for you from the pair pony class, the FEI 2-star pair pony class. Katie Whaley was the first down the center line for the pair pony class. And again, the good marks from the judges, expressed in the total good marks out of the possible perfect test. From Judge Paulson at C, 173.5, at R, 151, at P, 168, at V, 168.5, and at S, 171.5. And the penalty score for Katie Whaley is 61.77. For Jennifer Matheson and her pair of German sport ponies, at C, 165, at R, 143.5, at P, 159.5, at V, 166, and at S, 160, for a penalty score of 66.31. And for Mary Phelps, number 24, and her pair of classic American Shetlands, at C, 156, at R, 153.5, at P, 152.5, at B, 171, and at S, 156.5, for a score or penalty score of 66.84 for Mary Phelps and her ponies in the 2-star pair pony class. First of the teams at the arena now, these four in hand, owned and driven by Mary Ruth Marx. Mary Ruth Marx here from Madison, Wisconsin, with her team. Adesko, Moscow, Annie Laurie, and Yasha. These four horses bred and raised by Mary Ruth Marx. And Annie Laurie is the mother of Yasha. Adesko is the sire, and Moscow is a full brother.
And Mary Ruth's taken a different tack here in warming up on the other side of the arena by the stands before her entry, taking a left rein instead of a right. It's all in knowing your team and what works best for you.
Works best, yeah. Maybe all her training has been done to the left at home.
Okay, Mary Ruth's in her third movement, doing her extension across. Her first 15-meter deviation. Looking for bending and accuracy.
And obviously a beautiful picture here to see four grays in a team, but it's not color so much that you're looking for, is it? It's the movement and the way the horses move together that make a team.
Absolutely. But in presentation, I would think it's jolly
Bonus.
hard. And we should see an upward transition here at H with a lengthening of the stride into the extended trot. It's often quite difficult. It's a short space for the fours. You have to do an up and down transition very quickly.
Yeah, they certainly make the big arena look smaller, don't they?
They fill it up. This is a 20-meter circle to the right. And then to the left, the half circle. And both at the collected trot. At E, up transition into the working trot.
And in dressage, Martha, are the judges looking for all four horses to be working equally with the equal pressure on the traces, or are there certain movements where you just get your leaders out of the way?
Well, you mentioned in the pair units, and they should be working in their units, yes. And of course your wheel horses are going to have more of the weight and the pull. They have a different job than the leaders. but the big picture should be that everyone's doing their job.
So you're not driving two pairs, you're driving one unit of 4 horses.
Yes.
Yeah. And this vehicle is described as a combination vehicle. It's a heftier vehicle than what we've seen before that we referred to as the Spider Phaetons. A
Yeah,
combination. I'm not sure if she indicating that it would be used cross country or on the marathon as well as the informal presentation.
Some of the carriages you are able to do that. They have seats on the back for the grooms facing one direction, a different type of seat, and then can go. But you probably will have a different carriage for the marathon.
I would expect that, yeah. But this is definitely a heftier looking vehicle.
The old style, yeah.
So Mary, just coming around that turn, obviously had a word from the president of the jury, Nikki Paulson. I don't believe she was off course, but definitely there was an interchange there between her and the president. So a little bit different spot here for the halt, right at X across the arena, almost.
She's taking her 3 meter rein back. Working trot. We're looking for the bend here.
So as opposed to the ponies where we're looking for the number of paces in the rein back, this is a 3 meter in this particular test.
Yes, and the tests express them differently. And here Mary Ruth keeps her one hand through the collected and extended, and taking the reins back at H for her working trot. at V into the upward transition of her collected work. On the left rein and up the center line.
And there's the final salute from Mary Ruth Marx. First of the teams competing here this weekend at the two-star level. Mary Ruth here from Matheson, Wisconsin, with her homebred team, sired by the German riding pony Adesco, sire of the wheeler Yasha. He is now a gelding. Moscow, a full brother to Adesco. A German riding pony Arabian Cross. Annie Laurie, mother of Yasha, and aunt to Adesco. And Yasha, of course, daughter of Annie Laurie and Adesco. The combination vehicle made by David Christensen of Racine, Wisconsin. Mary bred and trained two advanced level horses, Memphis and Adesco. Her German riding stallion Adesco was first alternate to the U.S. team in 2010. Has had multiple championships in the Midwest with pairs and four in hands. Has been driving for many, many years. Mary Ruth also produced the popular video Teach Your Horse to Drive and wrote the Midwest Tandem Driving Handbook. So your score shown, once again from Jennifer Keeler, 57-28, of course expressed in penalty points. The good marks from the dressage test converted to penalty points, and the score the competitors carry with them onto the marathon, cross country, and then into the Cones Arena at the end of the second day. And we do have the score for you for James Miller now from the pair horse class. From Judge Paulson, 191. Judge Capstick scored a 162. Judge Nichols, 179, Judge Kunat, 175.5, and from Judge Scar at S, 186.5. The penalty score for James Miller and the pair Dutch Warmbloods is 54.51. And on your screens now you see the scores up to this point for the Kentucky Classic, for the pairs of ponies. Katie Whaley leading that group right now on a 61.77. Jennifer Matheson sitting second on 66.31. And Mary Phelps in the third place at this time.
And Wiebe Dragstra has entered the arena, preparing to halt at X.
Wiebe Dragstra here from Vass, North Carolina. This entry owned by Andy and Steve Vollers, Larry and Eleanor Smith, and Wiebe himself. These are Arab Roll Friesians, or Turbo Friesians. They're a crossbreeding effort done in recent years, crossing Friesians back to thoroughbreds and Arabians, producing a lighter, more sport horse. And he has four of these with him today, Arabo Friesians, Timke, Upke, Abir, and Duco.
And Jeff, you were talking earlier about the difference between the formal and the informal turnout. Here's an example of a very nice informal turnout with, the soft hat, the breast collars, the country colors.
So this would be something that tradition you would see maybe going to a hunt or out for a picnic or to visit a friend.
Exactly. And both are perfectly acceptable.
And this particular vehicle was made in the Netherlands by the Van den Heuvel company.
And these horses are very well matched, which which helps with that entire picture. And also they're matched in their way of moving.
Careful selection and breeding, and he is the breeder of these horses. Obviously, very important in his program to create that look and that athletic movement in those horses.
Mm-hmm. And you can see the different types of horses. These are large horses, but they're quite compact, which is different to the pair horse we saw, where they were larger, more long, elongated. And it just shows the different types of horses that you can have in the driving.
In the
and
driving
do
world,
well
yeah.
with.
And still show the right movement. You don't have to go to a harness horse.
Exactly. It's about the training. This 8-second halt, and then into the free walk.
And Martha, on these turnouts, now that we're into the four in hands, it's been very obvious that there are two people on each one of the turnouts, not just one groom on the back. And that is a function of safety, and obviously if you have four horses to tend to, you have one groom that tends to each pair.
Exactly, and sometimes you wish you had more. and in fact, the four-in-hand drivers they will have support people on the side, particularly on the marathon. And it's a safety factor for not only welfare of the horse, but welfare of the people and your spectators.
Right. But it does have a root in tradition as well, where you would have two
Absolutely.
grooms when you're out in the country always. And part of the turnout, as you see in the photo there when we get up close on your screens, those lamps, they are original. They're antiques on this particular vehicle. They're candle powered.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the turnout, and it is mandatory, is that you must have lamps and you must have reflectors on the back.
The rear reflectors, yeah. And it is lovely to see the antique lamps. But things can happen to them. Yeah. So sometimes people don't use the antique.
They are an investment.
They really are.
And in this sport, the competitors can bring more than the four horses they're driving here for dressage. In fact, all of the teams showed at least 5 when they presented for the horse inspection today, and they're allowed to substitute for different phases of the competition.
They are. They declare their 5 horses. They go through the horse inspection, and they do have their specialist horses.
Yep, and you can see that if you're watching on your TVs at home. The little white marker on the saddle of the harness is actually the number that's been assigned to that horse. And the steward will be checking that to make sure that the declaration is adhered to.
And it's important not only for the sportsmanship to know what horses are being used, but also it is a welfare issue. Most horses now are chipped, and it's pretty easy to identify them.
Absolutely, as you mentioned, their safety and the well-being of the equine athletes is of paramount importance, and you'll certainly notice that on our marathon phase on Saturday. I think they might have upwards of 20 veterinarians and students on the course.
Mm-hmm. And at some of your larger international shows, Aachen, for instance, they actually have a vet labeled as such in each obstacle. And I think this is something that's really developed in our sport more and more is the horse welfare issue.
Mm-hmm.
As we have more television, more people with cell phones, more people are really interested in welfare of animals, whether they're animal people or not.
Or not, yeah.
Yeah, that was a very well prepared downward transition into his walk. The lead horses walked right at him. Not an easy thing to accomplish.
Very nice picture across the diagonal there. You see the difference in the type of horse you want as a leader and as a wheeler. A lot more power there in the wheel team.
Mm-hmm. And it's very straight down the center line.
And the final salute. That completes the test for Biaggi Clement here from Vass, North Carolina, with Timke, Upke, Abir, and Duco. The Arabo-Frisian team put the Van den Heuvel vehicle. A beautiful turnout, a sporting turnout here in the arena. Biaggi Clement has been breeding and training horses for over 30 years now. First drove at his family's Frisian breeding facility or farm in the Netherlands. Spent time with the Hurstwood Hackneys in the United Kingdom, and spent 10 years in the Royal Stables in Holland. Coming down the center line next, we'll see entry number 22 in the team competition here at the two-star level. The second of 4 teams competing this weekend. This is the entry of Paul May from Fairfield, Virginia. Paul is driving for Harmony Sport Horses of Kiowa, Colorado. Here with the team of geldings, all KWPN registered Dutch warm bloods. Harmony's Zandelburger, Harmony's Gezant, Harmony's Senabi, and Harmony's Zeppelin. And they're put to Van der Heuvel presentation carriage. So just like ridden dressage, you have a bell, obviously, that comes from the president of the jury, or a whistle indicating that the jury's ready for you and the arena's open. And then you have 45 seconds, just like you do in ridden dressage, to get into the ring?
You have a set time to get into the arena. And almost always, the drivers, the more experienced they are, take their time and come into the arena just as they should.
Yeah.
Don't rush it.
And we see coming to the ring now another very formal turnout. Paul, from this vantage point, appears to be wearing his black top hat, driving for the Harmony Sport Horse group from Kiowa, Colorado.
In his working trot up to the halt. Salute. And this is another place that your more experienced drivers, they take their time taking their reins back, whip, get organized, and your upward transition into the next movement is in your own time.
Mm-hmm. And just staying with the picture for a second, we're looking at a vehicle showing a little more color here, and obviously the slats under the seat. It's a sporting vehicle.
Yes.
Typically, the original vehicles like that, that's where the hounds might be on your way to a hunt or a shoot, but the formal appearance, probably a sporting vehicle, and maybe heading out for a hunt or just for a country dinner.
Or it might be your lunch with champagne in the back.
Could be worse things in life.
Okay, just finishing his third movement, going into the collected work and approaching the 15-meter deviation. And then transitioning up into the working trot with a 10-meter deviation. And the judges will be looking for the regularity, the rhythm, and the transitions here as he moves up into the extended trot. Yep, good straightness over X here in his change of rein into the 20-meter half circle and to the right. And this movement really shows the suppleness of the horses and the accuracy of the driver. Nice straight halt. Good relaxation, but he may want them to be forward a bit more so they really are going straight and lengthening their stride at the walk, in that free walk.
They look a little disorganized there as they come to that movement, doesn't it?
The more forward you can have them, the straighter they're going to be and in their work. You'll notice the difference with this 15-meter circle here at C with the pair of ponies looked quite large, and with the 4 horses, it's a much smaller circle.
On top of themselves.
Yeah, and this is a difficult thing to fix. You want them regular, you want them forward, but if they aren't doing the right pace, you have to get yourself organized and sometimes just say, okay, we'll go on with the next movement.
Tough job, too, because you're focused on that one misbehaving part of your team while you're still trying to keep track of what the others are doing.
Yep. His two 20-meter loops. And thinking about his halt and his rein back. The straighter they are at the halt, the straighter the rein back will be.
And just looking at Paul's declaration here, I see he's declared the same 4 horses for all 3 phases of the competition, which so the 5th horse he has would possibly just be here as a youngster in training, or just in case something goes wrong with one of them.
Could be both of those. And sometimes drivers will travel with a young horse just to give them the experience of the grounds, the sounds, making sure that they're eating and drinking at night. And
going through the inspection and getting used to all that.
Exactly. Okay, he'll do his upward transition for the final movement up the center line.
When you're driving a 4-in-hand, is the transition when your leaders are at the letter or the middle of your team?
It's the leaders, unless the movement states otherwise, the directives state otherwise. Sometimes at the halt, they'll say the front axle for a letter.
Number 22, Paul May from Fairfield, Virginia. Driving for Harmony Sport Horses of Kiowa, Colorado, with Harmonies Zonderburger, Harmonies Gesant, Harmonies Senabi, and Harmonies Zeppelin. KWPN registered geldings, all Dutch warm bloods put to a Van der Heuvel presentation carriage. Paul May, the former single pony national champion in the US EF. His 2nd season with this team of horses. Competed in the Pony World Championships in France in 2013.
That's a big transition, going from ponies to horses and single to 4.
And up to 4s, yeah. And I'm sure he's very happy to have the support and sponsorship of Harmony Sport Horses in Kiowa.
Absolutely.
They're tremendous sponsors. They put horses under riders in dressage, ridden dressage. I've seen them in show jumping arenas. And here in the driving world as well. And again, a very special thanks to our sponsors in the premier sponsorship group this weekend, Mary Phelps and Markel Insurance. Weeble Farms of Ocala, Florida, David and Boots Wright. Mark and Teresa Candianis, Trout Walk Farm, and Susan Giordano. Your gold sponsors for the Kentucky Classic CDE 2017 edition include Max and Patty Montoya, Michael and Joyce Caudill, Milton and Jennifer Hamilton, Kate Whaley, Driving Essentials, Trout Walk Farm, and Susan Guinan. The fourth now of four competing with team, no, isn't it? Third of four competing with a team of horses now. This is Jimmy Fairclough.
Okay, another experienced driver who's really using his time to warm up. Changing rein.
And obviously my math off a little bit there, Martha. There are five teams competing this weekend, and this is the fourth of five with Jimmy Fairclough. Many times a national four-in-hand champion here in the United States. Also competed as a member of the four-in-hand team under the United States Equestrian team and the U.S. flag on the world stage. And again, a very formal picture here in the arena.
Yes, and I think the entry, the experience shown of really coming in at a strong working trot and saying, I'm here.
Here I am. Watch me. Yeah. And he drives a mixed team. Don't have the information in front of me right now, but I know there's an Oldenburg in this team, a Dutch warm blood or two. All warm bloods, but different breeds.
This fourth movement was very, very accurate, well driven into the corner, but also the horses are smooth and in balance and bending.
And just like anything else, Martha, when you can get to this level of expertise, obviously he's more relaxed, he's more confident in his driving. He's put in a lot of time with this particular team of horses, and it's showing.
It is. And the transitions are very fluid, and they're there. You can see how close he gets to the edge of the arena, how accurate that is, coming right up to the letter E, and then doing your transition from your collected into your working walk.
So you're showing the judges how precise you can be in what's called for in the movement?
Accuracy is part of it, yes.
And a different perspective from each of the judges around the ring. I know you've judged around the world for many years, and talk a little bit about what you see from each booth. I mean, does it change the test that much?
It can do. And actually, I have been at a clinic in Germany where we had screens from different vantage points, and you could see why the scores are a point, sometimes
Could
2
be,
points
yeah.
different, depending on what you see at that angle.
Right.
And that's why you have 5 officials. So you're averaging the score.
Yeah, while you're being subjective, you are judging what you see from your spot.
It's all you can do. And I have not worked with a judge yet. And no matter how much experience you have, when you really walk into that booth with the first horse ready to come in, and you just really want to get it right and
Yep.
do the best job. And there you could see the power and impulsion, even in that collected movement, how fluid it was.
It really is like those reins are transmitting information to those horses because they are working extremely well together. And when you have a jury of this caliber, when you have a jury that has worked international competitions up to world championships, possibly international games, they are judging more strictly, are they not? They've seen the best. Are their marks reflecting that here?
You're always working to an ideal standard. But I do think those competitors, spectators, and officials who see more and more competitors, and in Europe there are so many foreign hands, that yes, you know exactly what you're looking for.
So they might reflect a little bit, or they might see a score perhaps that they think is a little bit higher than they deserve, but it's because they're competing against what the judges have seen around the world. And it does boil down to the picture, doesn't it? If you sat in the stands and you see a test that's fluid, even, no resistance, everything just happens before you, flowing in the circle. Put your money on that one because he probably will do well.
Yes, and you're really looking for that scale of training. You know, that's the basis you're working from, and the accuracy builds on top of that. And you know, just as someone looking at it who hasn't been around it for a lot, you're right. If it's fluid and forward and smooth, tend
Likely
win.
to be a good one.
Exactly. And the final salute.
And there's your final salute from Jimmy Fairclough. You're in the arena with his team of warm bloods. You're from Newton, New Jersey. Jimmy Fairclough, member of the United States equestrian team many times in World Championship competition around the globe. Silver team medalist. His name has appeared on the Vanderbilt Cup more than once as the national four-in-hand champion as well. So another beautiful picture leaving the arena, and we have one more to go in the four-in-hand category. So thank you once again to our Tiffany level sponsors, top level sponsorship at the Kentucky Classic CDE for 2017, hosting the National Singles Combined Driving Championships this year. Thank you to Hillcroft Farm, James and Misty Miller, and Rood and Riddle Equine Hospital. They are the treating veterinarians of the Kentucky Classic Combined Driving event, and they would like to welcome you to Kentucky. So some pictures here of the head of the lake at the Kentucky Horse Park, where one of the most beautiful obstacles you'll see on the marathon. Very nicely decorated. Martha, we're talking about the collection, the precision of the dressage test. Just like riding is the basis for jumping and every other discipline, this training in the dressage arena carries to the marathon and carries into cones. It's all the basics that build into a good team.
It's really, really important to have that basic training in place, particularly as you get up into the higher levels. You can't do it just on the marathon. You can't do it just on the cones. Your dressage has to be there, and it's what you've put in the training, the horses that will carry through all three competitions.
And it is truly a combined test. I mean, a good dressage score doesn't guarantee you're going to win the competition.
That's right. But a good dressage score can carry you a long way.
And it fills you with confidence, too, taking you into those other two phases. Ladies and gentlemen, and now at the arena number 56. This is the final entry in this group of competitors, the first group and the final four-in-hand competing here this weekend. Misty Miller is the owner and driver for dressage today, driving a team of geldings: Calypso 86, Diplomat, Dan 8, and Sacco. This team of warm bloods put to a Van de Heuvel presentation vehicle.
Misty is using her time to prepare. We were a little bit ahead of schedule, and the drivers have the right to use all their time.
Yep, or come in and the bell rang indicating the jury was ready, but you're right, Misty just took her time.
And it shows on the entry. They're very straight and forward.
Very accomplished horsewoman, but hasn't been driving a four-in-hand for that long.
But has done many things in the horse world. Good long strides on her leaders, covering ground across the diagonal. And you can see the bend and positioning in her collected work in the first deviation. And the change of pace at B, doing the upward transition from collected into the working trot and making it clear. Yeah, and her upward transition, she just drove that corner, and then the upward transition was right there at H. This is another very accurate driver. Soft down transition. And just one leader swung his haunches out at the end,
just a
but
bit.
as she came down, those heads were all right in line.
But you can't let that bother you, can you? That movement's come and gone. Let's just focus on the rest of the test now.
Yeah, and actually, there's so much in that movement. It might be a half a point.
Mm-hmm.
And depending where you're sitting, what you saw.
What you saw, yeah. Obviously straight onto your judge at C, but
Mhm.
perhaps not from the sides. And another very beautiful turnout. Didn't mention much about this, but the chrome on the collars and on the harness,
Yeah.
as opposed to the brass we saw earlier. And a nice sporting vehicle, a very formal turnout, maybe a lady going to a picnic or just show off around Central Park.
Going to the park for a drive. But also you have to take into account our light has changed. We're approaching dusk, and it's a little bit cloudy, so the judges are the ones who are up close, so they can really see how clean it is
The quality.
and the grooming
Yeah.
of the horses. It's a little hard for us from up here.
And fortunately for everyone here, but there hasn't been that much of a dramatic change in light. We did start with a bit of overcast. It could have been quite a dramatic difference if the sun had been out brightly for the first few and then cloudy now, but
Or it could be raining.
rain is not allowed to come visit us this weekend.
No, let's hope not. Into our 20-meter loops. Preparing for the rain back. Well-defined steps.
And Martha, we talked earlier about the judges and their experience from being exposed to worldwide competition. Misty has included that in her training regime. She has been competing in Europe in order to be exposed to the best and to bigger classes with more participants and more being demanded of her. I think that's obviously showing in her driving.
Yes, and it's a big atmosphere over in Europe. There's a lot going on, and often your competitions are on much smaller areas of ground. We're really fortunate here at the Horse Park and in many of our American events to have the land.
Mm-hmm.
And so that adds another element to the...
Another bit of challenge to be that crowded in a small space.
Yeah, that was a nice down transition. And these horses are relaxed. Yet forward. And in her final movement down the center line.
And that's the final salute, completing the test for Misty Miller, Diplomat, Dan, Calypso, and Sacco, the team of Warm Bloods put to Vendenheuvel sporting vehicle. Here at the Classic, after a very successful season abroad with Misty and Boyd XL, an avid sportswoman, a skydiver, a sailor, twice a USEF National Pairs Champion, also 2015 leading saddlebred owner, and one of only 4 amateur riders to have won the 3 gated world championships, and an avid polo player. And Martha greeting her out of the gate, 2 of the world's best, Boyd XL and Costa Ronde, so in good company.
In good company and great support team.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on an intermission right now, we have lots more to come to you from the Kentucky Classic. We'll be back after a short break with the single horses in the 2-star competition, the National Singles Combined Driving Championship. At the Kentucky Classic CDE, we have the scores for you from the last group you saw just before we went to break. For Ms. D's group of four in hands right now, a leading score of 43-36. Jimmy Fairclough sitting second on the 50.08 penalty points. Wiebe Dragstra and his team in third right now, 58.93. Paul May in the fourth position on 69.02. And Mary Ruth Marx sitting fifth in the four-in-hand class in the Kentucky Classic CDE on a score of 80.98. And for those of you watching the webcast, this is being brought to you by Post Time Productions as we invite Donna Crookston down the center line now. Donna Crookston with Victor, first of the singles, here from Salzburg, Pennsylvania.
Donna's in her upward transition into the collected trot. At H, upward into her extended trot.
So, Martha, we're back to that test we saw earlier for the singles with the canter work again.
That's correct. Here she's doing her one-handed change of rein, wanting to see the bend and the impulsion and into an extended trot. Many more transitions in this single test, and asking more of the single horse with the diagonal yield and the canter work. Here we should see slight flexion to the right, with the right hind and left front crossing together.
So even though they're in the shafts, the horses still show that lateral movement.
Yes, and actually this is still a controversial movement as to how much of this can be shown between the shafts. It would have a lot to do with the harness and the carriage as to how free the horse is within that.
And, of course, the shape of the shafts, because that's changed over the years, too, from straight wooden shafts to these, obviously, with a curve in them, allowing for that little bit of movement in the hind end.
Exactly. I will say this is also a very difficult movement to see as a judge from certain positions.
It must be.
Your judge at C can see much more than your judges who are sitting at V and P.
Mm-hmm. And there, Donna using her whip there, that was just asking the horse to move sideways, move away from the whip.
And the medium trot there. Down into the walk. With a good transition down. At E, she'll lengthen the stride into the free walk. You want to see energy, but that stretch and the hind footprint overlapping the forefoot. As she prepares into the collected movement. And so the preparation for a driver is not only to turn, but to come from a free walk where you have much more rein that you're taking up in preparation and then into the collected work.
And how much do you depend on your horse to know what you're asking here? I mean, obviously, a transition to a canter that short. What is your aid? How do you communicate that to your horse?
Yeah, it really is in how you can bring that energy from the quarters and that connection and contact in your hand. Same as in riding.
Yeah, same thing, except you don't have the seat to help you.
You don't have the seat, so you must have that connection and communication through your other aids.
Must have been a very interesting transition for Donna. She's always been a competitor. She used to evented up to the upper levels of the 3-day world, and now an international competitor on the U.S. equestrian team in the driving world with singles.
And you can see the anticipation here. And this is a big horse. You know,
He is.
he's-
She purchased this horse from a friend of ours in Florida, Casey Zubik.
She will have wanted a smoother transition here and more relaxation in the canter. And for some horses, cantering and harnesses is quite exciting.
I'm sure, yeah. And also a bit of a difference for Donna, who campaigned at Morgan for many, many years, and the transition to a warm blood of a Dutch harness horse like this must have been a challenge as well.
Mm-hmm. And here we have a short space, X to B of collected, extended B to M, and then M to H is working. So all three trots and transitions in a short period of time. Deviation, one-handed, looking for accuracy, bending, and impulsion. And this horse certainly is working from his quarters and showing the impulsion. – 20-meter deviation, collected, taking her reins at K. And the directives say reins at will. So the driver, they can take their reins past K if they wish.
And there's Donna Crookston's salute, completing the test for her and Victor, her Dutch harness horse. A big Dutch harness horse, stands 16 hands plus. Put to a Bennington presentation carriage. Donna had a great 2017 season, starting in Florida. Third place finish at the Live Oak International, a very prestigious event in the calendar of combined driving. Also a second place finish at the Sunshine State competition at the Horse Park in Ocala. Up to Bromont in Canada, where she won the competition, finishing first in the class for single horses at the advanced level, and a second place finish this year at the Garden State competition in New Jersey. Victor and Donna competed in Austria last year as part of the U.S. Single Horse World Championship team. Again, our gold sponsors in the competition here this weekend for the Kentucky Classic CDE and National Singles Combined Driving Championship. Thank you to Max and Patty Montoya, Michael and Joyce Cowdill, Milton and Jennifer Hamilton, Kate Whaley, Driving Essentials, Trout Walk Farm, and Susan Guinan.
Nifty has opted to use her time to warm up close to the state.
Nifty Hamilton here from Alva, Florida. She and her husband Bus own this horse, Macari Design, KWPN registered Dutch warm blood.
And she's really taking her time to show him this large arena space and asking him to listen.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about the different breeds, the different turnouts. The backgrounds of the competitors also very varied. We mentioned one of the sponsors just earlier, Max Montoya, a multi-season NFL lineman who competes with his pair of horses, Nifty and Bus Hamilton, who ran a marina in Alva, Florida. He's a yacht broker. We have doctors, lawyers, all kinds of different backgrounds of the drivers in the competition.
And that's one piece that really makes this sport fun, and everybody gets together for the events, and the diversity and depth really is great.
Makes for good parties too.
It does. Nifty is asking her horse to relax and take in all the sight.
Looks like we had a little bit of a delay here, Martha, in picking up the scores from the judges, and that led to a little bit longer break for her, and maybe a plus, maybe a minus. Maybe her mind was set and she was ready, and this little delay can affect her either way.
Maybe, but I think at this point, to have that relaxation, and just saw her do her upward transition, asking the horse to come into her hand and trot, I think it may help her. Nifty in her fourth movement, changing rein, in the collected trot. We're looking for the bend and the transitions. And the judges really want to see the horse's body straight through the center line over X in the rein change. Diagonal yield. Should have slight flexion to the right. And into the medium trot. Slight flexion to the left. And from the medium trot down into the walk.
And Martha, it really is great to have this post-time production available on the web. Just sitting here watching the arena and the monitor, you see so much more from the shots that you're able to watch on your computers or TVs at home. A beautiful picture in the arena, but a great opportunity to learn about the sport from this broadcast.
It is. And I know the drivers will take advantage of this and look at it together with their remarks on their dressage tests and use it as their homework for preparing for their next competition.
Absolutely, yeah. But right now it's all about the championship, about being the champion for 2017 in the single horse category for the USEF.
Indeed. She had a very smooth upward transition into her canter. Collected trot here. Into her 8-second halt. Good straightness going into the halt and a nice square halt. Collected trot in preparation for her next canter to the left. And the directives say here you want to see rhythm, the quality of the canter with an uphill tendency. Yeah, good lengthening of stride and covering more ground in the extended canter. And this is where the relaxation really helps this horse. And then our 3 trots, working, extended, and then down and collected. And then the mirror image again of the same 3 trots. This is an accurate and fluid test. But as you say, it will come down to those small differences between them.
Like those.
She should be fairly pleased with that. It's a good steady test.
Nice horse. He carries himself well, doesn't he?
He does.
Very,
He's
very
uphill
happy with
naturally
himself,
and relaxed.
And that's a final salute from Nifty Hamilton. Nifty and Bus Hamilton's entry here from Alva, Florida. Macari design, KWPN registered Dutch warm blood, put to a Bennington Spider Phaeton. Nifty's been competing for many, many years. Just starting at the 2-star level. She finished first place at the Garden State Combined Driving event
and was the preliminary champion and winner of this Kentucky Classic competition in 2014. So we'll continue with the championships now. This class of two-star single horse turnouts competing for the USEF national title as national single champion. We've seen two so far, Donna Crookston and Nifty Hamilton. I believe both have held the title before, vying for it again. I know Leslie Burnell has, and she's up next. Again this weekend, Tiffany sponsorship provided by Hillcroft Farm, James and Misty Miller, and the show treating veterinarian group Rudin Riddle Equine Hospital. Again, vying for the championship. Got just a little bit ahead of schedule, so the next will be making their way down to the arena now. 12 minutes allowed between the tests in this competition. And again, for the championship this weekend and the two-star, not only here in the arena, the action also brought to you by Post Time Studios online. So Martha, as we mentioned earlier, the competitors coming out of the ring immediately proceed to see the stewards, and is that just to verify the width of the vehicle? Is there a minimum at the FEI level, or is it to make sure that the same vehicle comes back for cones, or both?
Yes, it should be a correct measurement, and it needs to stay the same between the dressage and the cones.
Okay, so today we measure it, and then after cones are completed on Sunday, it will be verified.
Yes. And occasionally it happens that it's not the same, and that can be a big problem.
Indeed. Some of our visitors enjoying the evening here in Kentucky with a drink and a bite to eat as they watch the dressage here at the Rolex Arena. As we continue next with entry number 38. Number 38 at the ring is Leslie Burnell, formerly from California, now residing here in Kentucky, with the Royal Dutch Warm Blood Uminko. That royal prefix assigned to the horses registered in the KWPN stud book. Uminko is put to a New Heritage Farm D69. So the pair coming into the arena now, the driver, Leslie Burnell, a Californian now residing here in Kentucky, with Uminko, or Travis as he's known in the barn.
And Leslie's an experienced driver. She came in with a commanding entry. Square halt, and the horse waiting for her.
She competed a pony, I think, last season. She had it was either a Fjord, I believe it was, that she had as well as this horse in competition last season. We'll see how what she turns up with this winter in Florida. But she's been with Travis, or Uminko, for quite a while.
Yes, this horse has a big natural range of motion. Her change of rein at the collected into the extended. And Leslie showing her transitions clearly.
A very expressive driver, isn't she? With the whip clearly held out from the body, showing the judges exactly what she's doing and asking for.
Indeed. So the horse should be parallel to the center line with the legs crossing diagonally. And this is a difficult movement in a carriage. Yep. Long ground covering strides here on her extended trot. Coming round again to the diagonal yield. The judgeess really gets a view of that down transition from the medium trot to the walk. And here she is in her free walk. And this is accurate. Sometimes drivers will come slightly before the letter to get that bend and the turn. And Leslie went straight for the letter and did
And got her
bend.
turn.
Yeah. A very smooth transition into the canter work.
And that's practice and good guidance, isn't it? Good coaching and good driving.
Yeah. And the training and connection that she has. The contact. It was 8 seconds. And now she prepares for her canter.
Is that a clock you've built into your mind, that 8-second clock from watching tests from the judge's box?
No, I actually count.
Okay.
And I think the drivers do too. This horse has really developed his canter work over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. I think he was originally owned by Fritz Krupe, wasn't he, out in California? I think that's how they came
Perhaps
together.
so. In her working extended and collected trot piece, coming into the rein back, which should be 6 steps. 2, 3. And there you have 6 steps and maybe a half.
A bonus. And now the light really changing. You can see the lights coming into effect now, casting different shadows. But
It's beautiful on the lake. Working trot, one-handed deviation, 10 meters. Looking for the accuracy of the figure and the bending and impulsion. At E, she goes into collected work, and she really showed a clear difference here. 20-meter deviation. And into her final salute, coming up the center line.
for the USEF National Singles Championship and the CDE FEI 2-star class, Leslie Burnell from Kentucky with Uminko. Leslie, USEF National Champion 3 times. She's held that title on 3 separate occasions and has represented the United States at the World Championships 4 times.
Leslie's a very focused driver. It's sometimes hard to tell how she feels about a test, but I would think she'd be pleased with that.
She should be, yeah. Well, Martha, we have 4 left to go to complete the championship class and the FEI 2-star for the single horse turnouts. 3 of those 4 are from Canada, all 3 from Quebec.
Aha. The home crowd for you.
For me, it is, yes. Yeah, they're a group of competitors that travel together, and we see them down in Florida. We see them up in Bromont, and it was great to see them here this weekend. And the first of those 3 will be number 46, Biaggi Clement. Our premier sponsors for the competition this weekend here at the Kentucky Classic and the National Singles Combined Driving Championships, Mary Phelps of Markel Insurance, Dave and Boots Wright of We Both Farm in Ocala, Mark and Teresa Candianis, also from Ocala, Trout Walk Farm, and Susan Giordano. And back to the beautiful photo that Martha was talking about here at the lake outside of the Rolex Arena at the Kentucky Horse Park. A gorgeous picture. We have a number of people here on the stands and up on the terrace taking advantage of this beautiful evening in Kentucky to watch the singles championship competition and the CDI 2-star.
And you can just see the leaves starting to change.
CDI is where I was last week. Sorry, this is the CDE competition.
Yes.
Up next, number 46, le numéro 46, Biaggi Clement du Québec, here from Canada, from the province of Quebec. His navigator, Isabelle Denis, also the owner of Stormy Ridge King, an American Dutch harness horse, put to a Domniac Phaeton.
It's really nice to see the depth that we're beginning to get with the single horses. And
Well, what do you think? Do you think we'll see them at the World Equestrian Games? And I know there's a number of us who really would like to see that happen, to see it develop, but it's a political and a logistical issue.
It is, but I do think if somehow the singles could be showcased, it would really benefit our sport. Ideally, we should be seeing some crossover from the dressage and the eventing world, and also our young junior drivers who are look at the single horse and say, maybe I can do that.
Well, it's interesting being involved in a variety of different disciplines. The driving world does have junior drivers. There's a severe lack of junior riders right now in the other disciplines, so it's great to see.
It is, and actually it's a worldwide problem.
Mm-hmm. So Martha, over now to Biaggi Clement and the Dutch harness horse Stormy Ridge King. And I think this pair have not been together very long.
Solid entry with good regularity. Tracking left in the collected trot, preparing for the extended trot, H to E. The turns really come up quickly in this test, and the preparation before each movement and transition is really key. A little bit of resistance going into the diagonal yield. But settling into his rhythm.
And Martha, do the rules dictate that as we get into dusk now the lamps be lit? Does that have to happen? Is that part of the turnout requirement?
We're really not. I think in combined driving, as technical with those kinds of things as you would be in a coaching class.
Yeah. I noticed that Pierre does have the little electronic tea lights in his lamps.
Well, he might
Nice
get
touch.
a little extra boost for that. It's losing a little bit of his regularity, and you'd want to see a little bit longer stride in the medium trot.
A little resistance there too. It almost looks like a combination of both the driver and the horse, doesn't it, at this point?
Yeah.
But a very nice carriage. You see there where the description of the spider phaeton comes in when the undercarriage seems to almost disappear.
Mm-hmm. That really is a nice line.
Mm-hmm.
And And if the relaxation isn't there in the free walk, it's really difficult to get the length of stride and the regularity. Preparing for his canter. Right lead. It took a little bit to get that established. And it will hurt him in his regularity,
in the scoring there.
both his collectives and in the movement. So on to the next.
And I know Biaggi Clement, one of the names we do see a lot up in Canada at the Bromont competition. The Quebec drivers have a lot of fun with their horses in the winter as well, ski joring and sleigh racing.
And coming from New England, I can identify with that. There's a lot you can do with a horse in the snow. And this lead,
The horse
He's
looks a
better.
little more comfortable, doesn't
he's
he, on the
much more
left lead?
comfortable indeed. But you would like to see that top line stretch and relax and have longer stride at the extended, but it takes time for these things to come.
So when are we going to see Piaf and Passage in harness?
I don't think we will. Sometimes we see it and we don't want to see it. But you do have a point. I mean, there is the potential out there to do a lot with a single horse.
A lot more cross-training. A lot more people talking about teaching a horse to work in harness and do some conditioning work with no one on his back if he's a performance horse in the dressage arena or even a jumper.
Well, it does help their legs, and you see the driving horses into their teens and sometimes 20s still driving. Into the one-handed deviations. Driver just thanking the judge.
And the test complete now for Biaggi Clement from Quebec in Canada. His groom Carolyn Arup on the back of the vehicle, driving an American-bred Dutch harness horse, Stormy Ridge King, put to a Dominiac Phaeton. King is in his second year of a FEI competition. Monsieur Guillemette in combined driving for over 10 years now, a horse breeder for 40 years, and a big promoter of the CDE Can-Am Bécancourt in the ADS and Equine Canada sanctioned competition.
Some people at home with large computer screens are probably getting a lovely view of this sunset tonight.
It's a gorgeous evening here at the Horse Park in Kentucky. And this brought to you by Post Time Studios. For those of you enjoying the evening at home watching the dressage competition and the national championships for the single horse turnouts. And Martha, as I mentioned to you earlier, a number of Canadian competitors from Quebec. The next entry also from La Belle Province, number 43. Number 43 up next, we'll see Caffeine Livercell here with Fizz Forever, a Dutch harness horse, a young one, 7 years old, put to a Spider Fit.
She's here. Our next competitor warming up, waiting for the bell. And this is quite a new thing for most of our drivers, I think, to compete in dressage under the lights. And it is beginning to get dark.
You mentioned a very pretty picture behind us, or beyond the arena, of the sunset. And that will change conditions in here in the arena a little bit more now as we head into darkness. The shadows of the horse will appear under him in different directions from the lights, and hopefully they'll just ignore that and get on with the job at hand.
Yeah, I would expect that they would.
At the 2-star level, absolutely. If you recently joined us at home, we are underway with the final class of the evening, the single turnouts here for their championship competition in the Kentucky Classic CDE. A panel of jury members from around the world. Nikki Paulson presiding over this jury here from Sweden, joined by Pia Skar from Denmark, Jiri Kunat from Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic now, Barry Kapsik from Ireland, and Jennifer Nichols from Australia in the jury boxes around the arena.
And the bell has rung, and she is coming into the arena.
So Martha, when you're judging these classes, does what happens outside the ring get judged at all, or do you start looking at the entry as they come in the ring?
It's the entry, yeah. And I actually consciously wait until that entry.
Until you see them coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Katrine has always had this signature look with the red spoked and red undercarriage vehicle and the big scarf and hat.
With a touch of red at her neck.
Yep.
Yeah. Her change of rein, and then extended and working trot before she goes into her diagonal yield. So here you can see the horse is more or less parallel to the center line and should have flexion to the right. I do think this is a very difficult movement in a carriage to do correctly.
It must be, but I mean, that was one of the better ones we've seen this evening.
Indeed.
And a relatively young horse, just 7 years old, to be competing at the 2-star level.
And knowing this is a young horse, what I would commend her on is the relaxation that you see, because you really want to build on that. And that regularity, and getting that trot work really established. And also the contact without resistance.
And the end result is that pretty picture you see going diagonally across the ring.
And it will only get better and better as she continues to work with him. You know, and this is a championship, but also with a young horse. I would imagine that she has her own personal goal of what she expects to get out of this competition, and where she places maybe secondary to that.
To what she gains in experience.
Exactly.
Or her and the horse.
And she had a subtle correction there. He started to anticipate, as he just did there, and she just brought him back and gives back.
Watching that picture, I think given the choice, I would much rather be in the front seat. That back seat looks precarious.
Yeah, the little dicky seats. Nice quiet transition, but unfortunately broke. But came back with correction. Yeah, she has her 8 seconds.
The horse looked up there now. You probably didn't catch that on your monitors at home, but there was a noise from the grandstand that something dropped. But handled well. She didn't get involved in it. Just let the horse have a spooky look and carried on.
And she actually made him stand a little extra time to make sure that that was
They
established.
got over it.
Yeah. With time, she'll get the longer stride, I'm sure, in the extended canter. But it's calm and regular.
And it takes, as you say, it takes time, and that's why these competitors travel to Florida and try to get a full year season in. Because it'd be tough to get much training done in 4 feet of snow in the winter.
It is, and it's hard to train in a vacuum. You really need to get together with other competitors
True.
and compete against one another. Finished her 3 different trots and coming into her deviation at the working trot. And now the 20-meter deviation at the collected trot.
And clearly holding the whip in one hand, but not as expressive as we saw earlier with Leslie Burnell.
Right, but both deviations are one-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice smooth turn and straight up the center line. Horse is clearly going in the right direction for her with the training.
Number 43, le numéro 43, Caffeine Livercell, here from Quebec with Fizz Forever.
And she was pleased with that, you can see in her expression.
Absolutely. Still, as she makes her way out of the arena. Fizz Forever, a Dutch harness horse, 7-year-old, with a presentation vehicle in his first year in the two-star competition.
It's lovely to see.
And a nice touch there with Catherine Levasseur leaving the arena, taking the time to salute the judges along the long sides of the ring. Just showing a little respect and obviously a happy driver.
I've noticed that your Canadians have done that pretty consistently.
Well, now we move back to the U.S. from Canada to Durango, Colorado for Daphne White's drive. Daphne White with Halstead by Legacy. A rare breed. This is a Hackney horse, this mare. One of the few Hackney horses we see in competition in any discipline. Stands 15 hands, put to a new Heritage Carriage Company presentation vehicle.
We used to see quite a few Hackney ponies in the beginning of combined driving.
And in light harness classes, indoor competition, we still do see a good number of Hackneys, but not in the combined driving world.
That's correct.
And again, a special thanks to our sponsors, the Silver Sponsorship Group, Richard J. and Paula J. Simmons, John and Shelley Hubble, Moonlight Farm, that's Daphne White, Craig Kellogg, and Marcy Quist, Jim Fairclough, Southern Venture Inc., and Mr. and Mrs. Edward Bonney. Number 23 at the ring now, Daphne White from Durango, Colorado. Daphne owns and drives this Hackney mare, Halstead by Legacy, here for the singles championship in the two-star competition. Halstead by Legacy is put to a new Heritage Carriage Company presentation vehicle. And Martha, we're down to the final two now for the competition. Daphne White here with the Hackney mare. Again, given a little bit more time to warm up as our score pickup made its way around the ring to pick up the scorecards from each of the judges. Daphne driving under number 23 this weekend for the USEF Single Championship.
And this really is a good opportunity for the drivers to warm up in a large arena with grandstands and big lights. It's a calm night, so the flags aren't flapping around. But
and an extra bonus, this is a large arena. We could almost fit a second arena here in the area where she's working.
Indeed. And you were talking about the shadows. You can see that as she comes around into the
under the
entry.
Different stands, yeah, under the different light posts. And here she comes down the center line, now being judged.
a little eager at the upward transition. You can let them come to that halt salute, take your time, and come up again.
I believe everyone in the competition for this championship this week is an amateur. I'm not sure about Leslie Burnell. She might classify as a pro and give lessons, but I don't think so. I think the whole group is an amateur group.
I think the single drivers tend to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another challenge, to balance a life that you might have to go to work every day, make enough money to pay for this hobby.
Yeah, and then just the preparation to
Yeah.
travel, and when you get to the competition, all the different pieces.
And it is a big puzzle, isn't it? You have to maintain the nutrition program for your horse. They might be off on the water. It might taste a little different, so a lot of people use maybe apple cider vinegar or something in the water to make sure that they drink.
Yeah, the hydration's very important. Our TD Harry Luff had given us an example of some research that was done by a group that researched all the different sports and the complexity of the sports, and combined driving came out as the most complex sport in its rules and the complexity of what you're asking.
Interesting.
Even more so than golf or cricket.
Interesting. Well, yeah, maybe it's time to burn the rule book and start again.
Well, I think our sport is always evolving, and
Yeah.
we're always thinking of ways that we can make it simpler, easier to understand for spectators. The rulebook is highly complex for
Mhm.
competitors and officials.
I'm sure, yeah. But you still have to maintain an equal playing field and ensure that some kind of rule is adhered to make equal play for everybody.
You do need it. Nice transition here down into her walk. Turn at E into the free walk, where you would expect to see freedom, a little more energy here to get that overstep. But he is certainly regular. Into the collected trot. And preparing for her counter work. Very quiet transition into the working canter. A little loss of balance there. He's a big, long horse. She's a better connection here.
Just looked like it could have benefited more from a little more collection in the rear, just underneath itself.
That contact and balance, yep. Halt was square.
And just like other sports, juniors are always, in fact, they must wear a helmet. But more and more adult competitors are switching from a fancy headdress to a protective headgear.
They are. There's a lot of research been done on the helmets, and actually the FEI is moving towards more of the helmet use for all of the sports and disciplines, and they tend to want to have it happen across disciplines. It's not always practical.
No, and it's being a very artistic sport where the picture that you're seeing is important and the presentation marks are important. The juries also have to get used to the fact that the fancy feathered hat might not be there anymore, and they have to just ignore that and judge the rest of the picture.
Exactly, or come up with a creative solution to that. I believe the dressage riders are moving more towards wearing helmets.
It's pretty well a done deal.
Yep.
Yeah. Canadians were very influential in that. They led the way. So.
And I know from my skiing background, years ago, people didn't wear helmets, so now almost everyone is wearing a helmet on the
To see
slopes.
a toque is a rarity. Yeah.
Yep. And into her 20-meter deviation. And he's a bit strung out for the collected work. And up the center line.
Yeah, 12 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but I'm sure it can be an eternity when you're in the ring to keep the focus.
Mm-hmm.
From Durango, Colorado, Daphne White and Halstead by Legacy. The Hackney mare stands just 15 hands put to a New Heritage Carriage Company presentation vehicle. Competed at Southern Pines in the combined driving event this year. Finished third there in the advanced single division. At the Palm Tree division in Dade City, Florida. Finished in third place as well in the advanced single category.
This is another Canadian.
We continue with the singles championships, the final round about to be underway. Number 45. Le dernier maintenant, le numéro 45, Denis Martin, here from Quebec. Denis Martin with Senna, a Canadian Hanoverian cross. 9 years old. And Martha, this entry defending their title from last year, winners of the Kentucky Classic CDE 2-star last year.
And he's taking advantage of his warm-up time in preparation. Again, we're seeing another type of driving horse here. The Hackney, a very traditional driving horse, as is this, but this is much shorter coupled
And a very
smaller animal.
It is, and an interesting cross too. I mean, the Hanoverian used extensively in other sports, show jumping and dressage particularly, and the Canadian horse, a working breed.
Canadian is a very, very nice breed for driving, actually.
It looks like he's going to have a little extra time to work here. Some of the judges' sheets that came up from the previous test had to be taken back down to be verified, so the score runners using up a little bit extra time here picking up the sheets while they get the corrections from the judges from last test. And again, a special thanks to our Tiffany sponsors here in the Kentucky Classic CDE and National Single Combined Driving Championship, Hillcroft Farm. Thank you to James and Misty Miller. And Rude and Riddle, the treating veterinarians for the Kentucky Classic. Rude and Riddle are treating vets for the competition dedicated to the care of show and sport horses. They provide experienced practitioners with expertise in lameness, imaging, acupuncture, and chiropractic care to stables and competition venues here in Kentucky and, in fact, throughout the United States. Looks like Bruce Hettinger, our scorekeeper, having a chat with one of the judges out in the ring. He'll get those sheets corrected and give us some scores from the singles up to this point. Along the side of the ring, John Robinson of Pics of You. Always here to take photos of the competitors, and a reminder to competitors, you can check his photos online at any time.
And Jeff, I just heard the bell go, so we should have our competitor in the arena shortly. Coming straight down the center line to his salute. And this working trot could have a little more energy and forwardness to it. Let's collect a trot up to H and extend from H to E. I think the judges may want to see a little more contact and connection to get that impulsion.
Mm-hmm. Denny likes the cross-country phase very much. He's mentioned that to me on more than one occasion. He gets through dressage to get to the marathon. He had a fairly good test in Bromont when he won the Canadian Championship this summer in June, but he went fault-free on the marathon course and in cones.
Quite an accomplishment. And some horses clearly enjoy one phase to the other. What I do like with this horse is the regularity and the relaxation.
And again, a horse that's fairly early in its career as a 9-year-old.
And here he's just starting to come into the hand a little more here, and he could ask for a little more. But it's all about the development. It does take time. And his yield coming up into the medium trot.
Almost looks like he's fussing at something on his face rather than the bit, doesn't it?
He may have a bug or something going on there, yes. Yeah. Ideally, you want to see that positioning to the inside rather than the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But his preparation was quiet and obedient into the canter, the right lead canter.
And do the directives call for a collected canter?
This is a
Or is-
working canter,
Working.
so he could have a little more energy here. And again, the contact,
Mhm.
that connection. And collected trot into his 8-second halt. Preparing for the canter to the left. He's very quiet and obedient in his transitions, but
Mhm.
I think the connection and the impulsion would really help him get
More out
those
of him.
marks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And here you see it. He's just getting longer.
Longer and longer, yeah.
Rather than having that energy that comes from behind to carry him into a longer frame and stride and covering more ground. Working to extend it and again to collect it as he turns at E, where he'll go into his 6-step rein back.
Just that picture there you see, and he's not quite engaged, is he?
No,
not.
he's quiet and obedient, but you can see as he is dropped as he comes into the halt before the back, that connection is slightly lost.
And that adds to the misconception that people have that the horse is actually pulling the carriage, isn't it? When he's pushing into the harness rather than pulling.
Yeah, it's the energy that moves it forward, and it comes from the quarters. Yeah. You don't want them down on the forehand.
Du Québec, le champion canadien, Denis Martin, and Senna, Canadian champion, number 45 with his final salute to the jury. And that was the final test. We'll see how the scores come out. This entry won the Kentucky CDE last year in the 2-star category. We'll await his scores and lots more action to come later on in the weekend. Well, Martha, it's been a pleasure being up here. I feel like I should give you a check. It was like a clinic. I learned a lot. Thank you.
No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the final entry coming out of the ring now. Making a point of saluting each of the judges individually as he leaves the arena. And it completes this evening's program here under the lights at the Classic with the final entry coming out the gate now, completing the program this evening for the Kentucky Classic Combined Driving event, brought to you by Post Time Studios. Hope you enjoyed it. It was fun for us up here bringing the action to you. Thank you, Martha Nickel, for being up here with me. And a huge thanks to our sponsors. Lots to come this weekend. More dressage tomorrow, marathon on Saturday, cones on Sunday. Class momentarily. Last scores coming up from our judges in the ring. We'll tally those in the scoring office and give you a standing after dressage for the USEF National Championship battle this weekend. For the National Championships for singles.
On Saturday,
So once again, waiting the scores here for the dressage at the final entries you saw here in the ring. For those of you tuning in on Saturday for the excitement of the marathon, coverage will start at 11 o'clock. The Post Time Studios coverage of the marathon of the Kentucky Classic starting at 11 o'clock on Saturday. National Championships. In the lead after the single horses, Nifty Hamilton on a score of 53.49 penalty points. Leslie Burnell second in the National Championship first phase of the competition, scored a 54.88. Donna Crookston sitting on a score of 61.01 is third. Daphne White in fourth place on a score of 61.71. Catherine Levasseur sitting fifth right now. Cinquième place pour Catherine Levasseur with a score of 65.12, 65.12. Those are your top five from the Kentucky Classic CDE for the two-star single horse turnouts and USEF National Single Horse Championship.
We hope you enjoyed this first day of our live streaming event of the Kentucky Classic. Please join us on Saturday morning when we'll bring you the exciting marathon.